What is going on, everybody? This is Josh back again with another video on Tech and Ish. Today's video is going to be about 911. The latest episode just dropped. It's called Monsters. And since it is Halloween, or basically we're almost towards Halloween, you already know that this episode is going to technically be a little bit scary. There's going to be a lot of Halloween stuff happening. It's really good. So let's just get into it. So let's start from the beginning. There's a field trip that's happening at a pumpkin patch, and there's just kids going over there trying to enjoy themselves. Now, right away, I already knew just by the attitude of these kids who's going to be the one that's going to start some shit or just get in some trouble. I already knew who it was going to be, and it was going to be that one who was wearing that red hoodie. You can tell he's just getting into a lot of stuff. He's taking off scarecrow masks. He's scaring people. He ends up running into a maze, and right there he sees a crow. He ends up seeing a crow on top of a scarecrow, and then he ends up grabbing some rocks and he's about to throw it at him. Now, it doesn't show him hitting the birds or anything like that, but you can tell that he basically got his ass in trouble from those crows because they're starting to leave the pumpkin patch. Everybody's already leaving, and these kids are basically running away from those crows because there's a ton of them just trying to get at them. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, you got what you deserve. You started messing with the damn animal. You threw rocks at him even though he didn't do nothing to you. And he's now attacking you. So he got exactly what he deserved. They end up having to call 911 because the kids are able to run into a barn and there's just crows everywhere. Now, I don't even know if this is true, that if you provoke a crow or if you attack a crow, that it's going to end up attacking you, or it's going to just continue to follow you until it sees you. Hen is telling Chimney that crows have, they're basically smart, that if they end up looking at you, they're going to remember who you are, they're going to remember what you did to them, and they're going to try to attack you as much as they can. So they go into that barn. They're basically trying to save those kids, patch them up from all the bites that the crows got into them. Hen ends up giving them like a fireman outfit and then putting one on the stretcher, and they're slowly walking out of that barn. And I mean, it's crazy to think that crows actually do this. I don't know anything about animals, so I'm not too sure about this, but it's actually crazy on how, if this is true, I'm going to make sure to never not mess with a crow again. What's actually pretty funny is that Chimney, it seems like he's very superstitious. Hen is telling him a lot of stuff about crows, and throughout the whole episode, he ends up seeing a lot of crows, or it's just one, but he ends up seeing a lot of it throughout the whole episode. And it makes you think, like, is he going crazy or is it playing tricks on him? But in reality, it's just one crow that's following him. Now, if you remember from the last couple episodes, like maybe just 2 episodes or so, Bucky has been trying to sue the fire department and Bobby and basically the whole team because he's not able to get back into his job. And he dropped all the charges. Supposedly, Bobby said that he filled out whatever type of paperwork he needs to fill out. That way, if he tries to sue the city, he's not going to be able to sue them because it's on his ass saying that, oh, well, I wanted to come back even though I'm on blood thinners. I want to come back and be a part of the fire department. So they're letting him back in, but Bobby is kind of like trying to keep him in a little circle, in a little bubble, basically telling him that he can't do anything, that he can't go out with them, or basically all he's going to do throughout this whole episode is just stay in the firehouse and hand out candy. Everybody in the whole fire department is just treating Buck differently. They're not looking at him. They're giving him that look that's like, we don't want to fuck with you no more. You over there trying to sue us, then you come back and you think we all buddy. Now, one of his big friends, which is Eddie, he even gives him the cold shoulder. He just doesn't want to deal with him ever since Buck did what he did. The only one who acknowledges him in the beginning of the episode is Hen. She's the only one who actually gives him like a velvet cupcake or something like that. And he's over here expecting a banner and some cake, a welcome back party. But he ends up coming to the fire department with nothing. Now, if you remember a couple episodes ago, Maddie ended up receiving a 911 call from this lady who basically is in a domestic violence relationship. And the only way Maddie can actually think about helping her is by basically stalking her. She ends up having that girl become her personal trainer because that girl works at a gym. She ends up having that girl become a personal trainer, and she sees a lot of this, or she's hearing a lot of the stuff that this girl is going through. All the verbal abuse. Now, you know Maddie knows exactly what this girl is going through because Maddie was also in an abusive relationship, but she was able to get out of it. So she's basically just trying to get into this girl's life, try to become her friend, try to let her see that there's a way out of this relationship. Okay, so when I started watching this one scene right here, this shit blew my mind. I knew something was going to happen because, of course, 911, it always starts off with they end up telling the story of one character, and it just goes from there. They call 911, and that's how it starts off with. But I did not expect this. This shit was crazy. This girl's just driving down the street, and she's on a phone call. I'm assuming she's going to go pick up something, or maybe she's going to go wait for something. But she's basically just driving. There's these guys on the road, and she kind of like almost tries to make sure she doesn't hit them. But she ends up hitting one guy. That one guy flies straight through the passenger seat. Right through the glass. He's basically in the passenger seat, halfway in, halfway out. And the way they made this look was crazy. It looks really, really good. But what actually blew my mind was the fact that, so she ends up getting hit in the head. I guess maybe her head hit the steering wheel, but she ends up getting hit in the head, and I didn't expect this to happen. It looks like she got a very bad concussion or a brain bleed or something like that, and she just drives off. The guy is right there in the car, and she's just driving away. She ends up going home, she pulls into the garage, and that's it. But the guy is still alive. Now, like I said, Maddie is stalking this girl, kind of, basically being her friend. And nobody knows about it. Bucky doesn't know about it. Not even her boyfriend, Chimney, knows about it. Now, they end up running into them at a mall, I think. And Maddie has been telling this girl that she's a nurse. She doesn't work for a 911, but she's a nurse. And she finds out Chimney's a paramedic. And the girl ends up realizing that Maddie's been lying to her and Chimney because of the reaction that she gave when she was like, oh, you guys must work together because she's a nurse and you're a paramedic. Maddie ends up finally opening up to Chimney, telling her or telling him the reason why she's doing this. And Chimney's like, you're doing exactly what your ex-husband did. Because if you remember on season 2, the ex-husband ended up stalking Chimney, ended up becoming his friend, and it was like they were actually cool until the very end where he ends up stabbing Chimney. So he kind of feels some type of way about this, that he knows that it's just going to blow up in her face. And that's exactly what happened. As I mentioned before, Bobby is not going to let Buck get on that fire truck throughout this whole episode. So get ready to just sit back and watch Buck just stay in the fire department and hand out candy. Now, the next morning, I thought when she was going to go inside her car, she was going to see the guy and she was going to be like, oh shit, what the hell happened here? And she ends up calling 911. And instead, she looks at the guy and she's like, oh, damn, I forgot a list. So I'm thinking this whole brain bleed or this whole concussion is going to go throughout the whole episode, that she doesn't even know what's going on. You end up seeing her walking out. She has 2 different kinds of shoes. She ends up walking into the car. She sees the guy there. It doesn't faze her whatsoever. She ends up going back inside, getting whatever list. She goes back inside the car and she just drives off. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? This shit is crazy. And what's even crazier is the fact that since it's Halloween, people do a hella decorations that look extremely real. And that's what happens here. They end up seeing a car pull up, and the car ends up having a dummy hand sticking out in his trunk. And, you know, of course, it doesn't look real. So people, pass buyers, they don't think nothing of it. But they end up seeing that girl who ended up hitting that guy. Now he's hanging out the window, and people are thinking that that's a Halloween decoration. So a lot of people really don't pay no mind to it. They're just letting it be. They do get this one couple does call 911 telling them that they think it's a real person because the body moved, but it doesn't really seem like the police took it that serious. Throughout this whole episode, you also end up seeing Eddie. He continues to give Buck the cold shoulder. He doesn't want to deal with Buck right now, and it looks like that's where it's going to be at just for a little bit. Now, throughout this whole episode, you're going to see a lot of things that is going to just blow your mind. Like, it's crazy that stuff like this is happening in 911. There's this little girl who ends up showing up to this guy's front doorstep. A lot of kids are coming up. You know, they're all trick-or-treaters. He ends up opening it up. He's kind of like seeing their outfits and stuff like that. But he ends up seeing this one girl. This girl looks malnourished, like big time. Like she hasn't seen the sun in months. And she has like shackles around her wrist, or she's basically like bleeding around the wrist. And she passes out right there in front of him, and they call 911. Now, I'm anxious to see what the hell this story is about. So keep in tune, because it's going to be crazy. Finally, Maddie ends up getting caught by that personal trainer. She saw that Chimney didn't have a really good poker face when she started talking about, you know, being a nurse and stuff. So she ends up doing a background check into Maddie, figures out that Maddie is a 911 dispatcher, and she's basically stalking her. She ends up getting pissed off about this. She talks to her supervisor, to Maddie's supervisor, telling her basically she's stalking her. And it really doesn't go that well for Maddie. Now, Athena is trying to canvass the whole neighborhood, trying to figure out where that girl came from, that malnutritious girl. And they're trying to figure out what the hell happened to her. The only way she can actually figure out what house she belongs to is she starts to look at every single house that doesn't have Halloween decorations. And she comes across this one house that just stands out like crazy. Right when Athena ends up coming out of the car, she ends up knocking on the door. I thought somebody was going to answer it. I thought somebody was going to come out, try to play it off. And in reality, my thoughts were this girl was being raped, or she was being held against her will. She was kidnapped. That's where my thoughts were, because of all these other shows that come out that talk stuff like that, like Law and Order SVU or Criminal Minds. They always go dark. So that's where my mind went. But she knocks on the door. Nobody answers. She starts walking around. She sees that there's broken glass. She lets herself into the house. And this house is just nasty, man. There's a hell of flies everywhere, or you can hear them. Now, when I started hearing the flies, I thought there was going to be a dead body. I thought that maybe the girl ended up killing somebody. Maybe the person who was holding her captive, that maybe he ended up killing her. Or him, or that the person who was watching them, or the person who was holding them captive, was somebody old and they just passed away and they're gonna find their body. That's what I thought. But then you come to realize that the reason why there's a lot of flies around is because this house is just dirty. There's trash everywhere. It looks like a hoarder's house. It's just completely dirty. Athena ends up opening the basement door, goes down, and from her reaction, you can tell why there's flies in here. It looks like it stinks really bad. She goes downstairs, and it's crazy because you end up seeing all these kids just like they're everywhere. I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 kids, and they're all shackled. It was crazy. And the parents are nowhere to be found. You end up seeing them pull up in a station wagon. Supposedly they've been looking for their daughter. And Athena ends up telling them, you know what, you're going to jail. Your daughter, she's in the hospital because of all the shit you put her through. And now you guys are going to jail. And I believe that they got what they deserved. You should not be doing stuff like that to your kids. That's crazy. And Eddie continues to give Buck the cold shoulder. He's basically just walking away from him. And Buck finally just decides to tell him, is this what it's going to be like from now on? And Buck ends up telling him that he's sorry for what he did. Eddie ends up accepting his apology, and they kind of like give a, you know, a bro hug, if you want to call it that. They give a hug, and you can tell that Eddie is bruised because Buck ends up giving him a hug, and he flinches a little bit. I'm pretty sure he's still doing that Fight Club thing. I think Buck is going to find out about it and try to talk him out of it. Now, since Bobby ended up having that talk with Hen, I thought that he was going to go to Buck and tell him, you know what, you can come with us on the next call out. You don't have to stay in the fire department. But it turns out he ended up changing his whole mind right there and then. You can tell from the look in his eyes. Something made him change his mind. And he decides to tell Buck to just go home. Luckily, since Buck did go home, he ends up coming across that girl who ends up hitting that guy. That guy he's still stuck in the car. It's already been 2 days and he's still stuck there. Nobody has said anything. Of course, since it's Halloween, a lot of people are not thinking about it. But nobody said anything. Buck ends up driving into his car. He starts chasing her. And he gets right in front of her. And this girl, she still doesn't know what's going on. It looks like that brain bleed is just still messing her up. She got some knot on her head like the size of a golf ball. Buck ends up getting in front of her, tries to check her eyes, and he knows that there's something wrong. He ends up calling 911. He tries to save that guy, and it looks like he cut himself a little bit. He nicked himself. So he calls 911. They were able to get everybody back, and Buck is actually bleeding a lot. Since he's on blood thinners, it looks like he was bleeding a lot from this one little cut. It looked like a little paper cut that he got, but he was bleeding a lot. And they decided to just take him to the emergency room. Now, if you remember, Chimney told Maddie that this is going to end very bad for her. You know, stalking that girl and not telling her the truth. And that's exactly what happens. Maddie ends up kind of like having to go through psychological screening. I don't know if you'll call it that, but she has to go through something like that. And she was very close to losing her job. But since her boss knows all the stuff that she went through, she's going to let her keep her job as long as she goes through that psychological thing. And if you remember when Chimney ended up dropping his name tag, that same crow that's been following him ends up bringing his name tag back to him. Now, that's some superstitious stuff. I don't know if that will ever happen, but the fact that it did happen is pretty crazy. Now, I thought when Buck ended up going to the hospital and he saw that he was actually in blood thinners, that he was going to tell Bobby, you know what, don't put me with y'all, don't put me on the team right now. But since these blood thinners, you know, I could actually bleed out in a serious accident. So I thought he was going to say something like that, and I thought Bobby was going to tell him something like that. But that's not what happens. They end up just playing it off like it was no big deal, and they end up leaving to just go get breakfast. And that's basically the end of the whole episode. It was really good. 911 continues to impress me. This show was amazing. This episode was amazing. It was really good. You definitely need to go check it out. I can't wait until the next one comes out. I'm continuing to review this show because it's probably my top 5 favorite shows. It's really good. And I just realized, I must be behind on some stuff, but I just realized that they're making a Lone Star 911, a spinoff of this. I don't think they need a spinoff of this because it's a good show all on its own. I don't think they need a spinoff. But then again, it's Hollywood. They do shit like that. A lot of shows are going to get a spinoff. Supposedly they're talking about doing another spinoff of Superman. They're talking about doing a spinoff of The Walking Dead. And it looks like it's just going to involve nothing but teenagers. So a couple spinoffs are coming through. And if they are any good, they're definitely going to end up on this channel. So keep in tune. Don't forget to like this video, comment, subscribe, only if you want to. And if there's something you want me to check out, just let me know in the comments and I'll review it. Until the next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.